heard about the NDP diet plan yet, you basically get to fill your belly with all the empty virtue signaling that you can stomach while you line your pockets with sweet, sweet taxpayer cash. Mabel Elmore is the NDP MLA for Vancouver Kensington, and last November she signed up to do a poverty challenge to show us all what a really good person she is. The Welfare Food Challenge asks participants to eat for just $19 a week. The idea is to make participants understand what it's like to live on the budget that people on welfare have to live on. The project is equal parts empathy and then equal parts showboating about how empathetic you are to other people. And Mabel, well, she did just that. She jumped into this thing with both feet and 2 hard-boiled eggs, as you can see here from her tweet extolling her suffering on just day 2 of the Welfare Food Challenge. But Mabel wasn't done telling us about her suffering quite yet. No, Mabel told the legislature then too. November 1st, 2017, deep in the throes of her pretend malnourishment, Mabel stood up in the BC legislature to say, "I advised my family of this on the weekend, and my mother asked if she could bake some cookies for me to help me through this week. But that's not allowed. You can't accept any charity or any other provisions beyond your budget. I think it's going to be a challenge, but certainly I'm committed to really having that insight into the experience and the hardship of people living in deep poverty and really the depths of poverty to understand that." Oh, but friends, Mabel did have other provisions beyond her small budget, because at the exact same time as she was self-flagellating in the agony of make-believe destitution before the legislature, her staff was expensing $61 per day as part of her maximum tax-free per diem for food expenses that MLAs can charge when they are in Victoria for sittings of the BC legislature. The BC Liberals just called her out on it. They dug into her expense reports to discover that her office expensed the maximum $61 for the 4 days that she was in Victoria at the legislature, while also bemoaning her $19 food budget. So what this means is that while Mabel was going through her very public $19 a week welfare food challenge to truly understand what it's like to quote unquote live in the depths of poverty, she pocketed $244 in food expenses. Now that she's exposed, Mabel says she's going to pay it all back. Now, I don't know if Mabel actually followed the entire $19 a week food challenge, and I really don't care because it's all fake and meaningless anyway. She literally enriched herself from the taxpayer purse for food expenses while going through the dramatic theater of pretending to live on a very strict food budget to shame those around her who don't want to or don't think the province can afford to raise the welfare rates. Mabel Elmore's slick little diet plan, this one that cuts calories and keeps cash, got me thinking of a few other times about those who claim to care about the poor and how they took advantage of the poverty industry. Does anyone remember the Portland Hotel Society scandal from 2014? The organization that runs the supervised drug injection facility Insight in downtown Vancouver underwent a comprehensive audit back then. That audit discovered extreme misuse of funds meant to help the downtrodden in Vancouver's inner city. Money was being spent on limos and expensive trips and lavish dinners instead of helping Canada's poorest postal code. And at the time, another BC NDP MLA, one named Jenny Kwan, was caught up in the scandal after it was revealed that her husband, now ex-husband, Dan Small, spent money meant to help the poor who inhabit Vancouver's downtown east side on her own family. She ended up repaying $35,000 after it came to light that Small, the Society's Director of Policy Research and Fund Development, expensed her family's trips to Europe and Disneyland to the Portland Hotel Society. And you will never guess who participated in the 2016 Welfare Food Challenge. That's right, Jenny Kwan. She too did this little Ichiban and egg challenge for fancy people to prove that she can relate to those poors. Seriously though, does anybody out there know how to bake their own bread anymore? Like for pennies a loaf, apparently you can feel good about taking all the luxury trips you want as long as you pretend to eat like a poor person for 1 week a year and then tell the whole world about it. Kwan is now an NDP MP. Her scandal didn't hurt her credentials within the Champagne socialist crowd here in Canada. Not one bit. And who could forget Attawapiskat Aboriginal Chief Teresa Spence? She was rolling around Attawapiskat in an Escalade while her people's houses were falling down. 11 young people in her community tried to commit suicide because of the conditions on reserve. Prime Minister Harper accused the band of mismanagement after an audit found millions in missing financial records between 2005 and 2011 from over $104 million in federal funding for the band. So Spence decided to eat like a poor person to, I don't know, try to teach us all a lesson about being so audacious as to ask her for a little bit of accountability. Spence told us all that she went on a broth diet and that she would sleep in a teepee in the winter and even die if necessary to protest her treatment by the feds. TV cameras and even Justin Trudeau just ate it up. Spence's protest lasted 6 weeks. She slept in a hotel every night and she didn't lose a single pound. Oh, and Spence's former common law partner, Clayton Kennedy, whom she hired to be the band manager and director of finances, he ended up being charged with both fraud and theft. And lastly, this new movement of eating like poor people for a week to really just understand their trials and tribulations, it's just voluntourism by another name. Do you know what voluntourism really is? It's the phenomenon of rich first world kids who want to travel the world, and they do it by taking vacations where they think they're volunteering and doing some good for the local populations. Think travel virtue signaling. And sometimes the tourists do some good, but mostly these kids just get in the way of actual aid workers. And the money they spend on their fancy vacation would probably have been much better spent just donating it to a good local charity that helps the poor. Eating like a poor person for a week is just voluntourism in somebody else's difficult life without the trouble of having to go all the way to Africa or Haiti to feel good about all the good you think you're doing to help the poor by gracing them with your mere presence and good intentions. And even worse, money that could have been spent on the poor was then spent to make sure that you didn't actually have to experience third world conditions like food and plumbing and sanitation while you were actually in the third world pretending to help. Anyway, getting back to our friend Mabel. She profited over $200 from the taxpayer while righteously preening about how she was suffering in solidarity with those who have no choice but to live in extreme poverty. To use the language of the left, Mabel was appropriating hunger and poverty. And taxpayers might be able to give people on welfare a little bit more if we weren't giving $61 per day to a politician who doesn't know how to pack a lunch kit like the rest of the working world. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. I'm all for holding politicians and public servants to account for their use or misuse of our tax dollars. And that's why I want to audit former Governor General Adrienne Clarkson to see all the details of her abuse of taxpayer dollars. And to sign the petition, go to auditclarkson.com.